We are live. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Cause and Effect podcast, where we introduce the cause and effect relationships that exist in golf in relation to the hand to handle to club relationship. First time we've done the podcast without headphones. It feels a little
weird.
different, but yeah, we're gonna roll with it. But yeah, first time we've done a podcast here in a couple weeks. We've been busy. I've been teaching. Jonathan's been doing his art project. I went on a golf trip last weekend. Just now kind of getting back to normal after that. Golf trips take a lot out of you, as a lot of our listeners and viewers know. But yeah, hope everybody's doing good. Our content's, I mean, again, we can't tell you how much we appreciate all the support we've been getting on our TikTok and YouTube and everything. I mean, it's pretty awesome. I mean, when we set out to do this, I mean, we
wish it'd be more, but like, it's just, we're trying here. It's just more of like a thing now where we're getting closer to being able to break the swing down.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're going to kind of start to give you a little bit more today. We're working on it currently as well. And that archive of the video is happening. It's coming. It's just, again, taking a little bit of time, but it's close.
Absolutely. Yeah. We wish we could like help more people. And now that we're getting more swings submitted to us via our Discord and stuff like that, when Jonathan said, wish it was more, I mean, we wish we could be getting more swing submissions. We wish we could be like helping more people. So, I mean, if you're listening to this, I mean, all the links are in the bottom for sending us your swing and we want to help you. I mean, that's why we're doing everything that we're doing. So
for sure.
So yeah, this episode,
we've been getting good feedback too. I mean,
we've been getting great feedback. I mean, our Discord's cool. Like you get a free swing assessment. I mean, we've talked about this in all the episodes. I mean, that's a huge value. I mean, hard time is very valuable, and we know what we're talking about.
The trend too, like everyone's pretty much going through the same trends, which we're going to kind of talk today a little bit more about the body of the golf swing and relate to the tour players right now that are winning.
Right.
And it's really important to understand that because the claws are the key, but the claws are connected to your torso and your shoulders and we'll say the axis. Correct. And we have to make sure that stays stable and centered throughout the swing so that we can support. When we talk about pushing down and out away from the body and stuff, we're doing that throughout the swing. But if the centered axis is moving, then we're going to have problems. So we'll get back into that in a minute.
Yeah, because it's really like not, I mean, me and you have talked about this and we were messaging a lot about this week of like, hey, what are we going to talk about in the podcast? It's been a couple weeks since we've done an episode. We're not going to talk about the hands and arms as much in this episode. If you want to hear more about the hands and arms, we've got a lot of episodes on that. So this episode is going to be
the archive videos are going to they're going to bring all that to life.
Correct.
But like right now, you asked me the question. You said, "What's the biggest thing that you've noticed?" And I've been giving some lessons to a few of my really good old students that I really like. Good friends, and they're great golfers.
OGs, the day ones.
Honestly, they really are. They're really really good golfers. So, but the tendencies of the problems are still the same. And what they were asking was the direction that, the hands are pushing. So it's like they understand pushing. But again, if the sternum is moving, then it's going to create a fault in the path or like an alteration to that path.
Right.
And then upon what you do from there, it's either going to allow you to control the axis or you're going to have multiple variations of problems. But the biggest key thing is like we have to stay centered. The analogy that really we want our viewers to understand is like imagine that you have a stake going from like the top of your head all the way into the ground, like through like your tailbone, right? Like if you had a tail. So that way you can't move laterally. So you can only rotate around that. And once you push down out, once you create the tautness with your arms away from like, you'll feel it throughout your shoulders, the inner arms, and you'll feel it against the club. It's like you can really push. And then the harder you push, if you max it out without overexerting any way or moving, you'll feel like the ultimate palm pressure against the club. And that's what we've been talking about. So when I have the short club here,
nice. There we go. Nice.
When we talk about pushing, it's like pushing like with the palms like this way. So when we get our claws, just trying to create that tautness, like right here, I feel that tautness. I could stretch it even a little bit more. And that's the, like when we talk about conditioning and training, we have like all this laid out. So we're going to have how many reps you need to do if you have like a certain goal. And you can just sit there in your, chair at night watching TV and on a commercial break. You just sit there and you do your field drills or, it takes 5 minutes a day and you do it like 3 or 4 times, but your golf game will improve so much. But it's just more about this reality of like seeing it more in front of you and being in your own comfortable environment.
This is why I love the chair
golf
drills.
course.
That's why the chair drills are so
good.
That's it.
Because
you you can feel like, okay, you're not moving. If you're in a chair,
as
you're
we
not
sit
moving
here,
laterally.
look at our leg bend and our
Right.
like we have a little more knee bend than we would normally have because in a golf swing it's like your legs would be out here,
Right.
Because you have very little knee flex.
So get a recliner if you're going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, but really,
You want the
we're
full
at a
effect.
45-degree angle though with our spine
Right,
as we're
right.
sitting here. So when you condition and like we don't want the club down here, but we want it, again, relative to your chest, proper. And then if you point it down towards your waistline, that's going to tilt the club up. And then from there, you can condition your move.
Right.
Right. So
because like we talk about with like the chair drills is that once you're doing it in a chair and you're kind of feeling that kind of said, like you said, the tautness and that push feeling,
right.
Once you bend forward, you already kind of trained that the night before or when you're doing your conditioning, right? So you can understand like, oh, okay, I know what that feels like because I was sitting in my chair working on the pushing and the feeling that tautness. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The one thing that is kind of confusing for a lot
of forward.
Yeah. So here's the tricky part though. So when we think about if we hold the golf club and let's just say it's again at like waist high and we're sitting in a chair, and you get your grip and you're pushing down a little bit on the handle. Let's say that the club head goes up of the handle a little bit. And then if you were to bend forward from here, let's say you stood up, bent forward, and then just allowed the club to come down to where the heel to toe were actually level on the ground to where if you bend forward too much and you're pushing down too much and the arms are coming in too much, the toe's going to be up too high. Right. Yeah. Or if you were to like extend the wrist down and ulnar too much, the toe's going to hit first. So, but trying to get that perfect lie angle and get the 45 to where again, you're not in too much ulnar. And if you get this perfect setup right, which again, the 3 different grip types will alter a little bit.
Yeah.
Like if you have a weak grip, you are going to set up with more ulnar.
Definitely.
If you have neutral, a little bit less. And then if you go to strong, it's going to be, more of a radial feeling.
Is that why would you say that some tour players stand a little closer to the ball because they have the people that have more of a neutral, weaker grip? They stand closer to it because they're like using their body more and have more ulnar.
It's not necessarily because like look at Mo Norman.
Yeah.
Mo Norman had the complete ulnar and he was like, he had locked legs and mean, he was 50 degrees bent forward almost at setup. Like he had him way out in front, but he had a certain technique of the way that he was using that move. So when you look at like DeChambeau, he is also pretty much locked, but the butt end of the club points, I would say, maybe a couple inches above his
the belly button.
Buckle,
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, that's going to alter the way that you use like or that you can support the lie angle throughout the golf swing. Because if you when you think about it, again, like weak, you're using more ulnar, right? Yeah. And then like flexion, extension, and then like face, like coming in, it's like you have the toe pointing down more and you're trying to actually control that. Whereas when you get the strong grip and you're pushing down more on the heel, the toe is more going to like work as a natural gear effect.
Yeah. And I would always prefer the toes off the ground more than the heels off the ground.
Right.
I would always prefer my students like get that toe of that club off the ground a little bit to where I could fit like a couple business cards underneath the toe, because then you can really start to understand like how to drive that heel into the ground and take that proper, like get that proper scrape, right?
Right.
Like, I think that's something that not a lot of people really know about when you hear about like, how do you take a proper divot?
The thing too is when it comes down to this, once you understand the proper mechanics and everything, you have to understand that you do have to get the proper equipment. Yeah. Like if your clubs are too long or you don't have the right bounce or something on your wedge, which we're going to walk you through that too, like in our archives, like what kind of wedge you should have, the bounce you should have relative to the grass you're hitting off of. Just simple things like that that's going to help you down the road. But because we have to understand that once we get the grip right and we get like the swing mechanics right with that grip type, we're going to have to make sure that the club is in the right position and like, or it can work the right way for us, opposed to, making it harder for us. Right. So
the big thing that really is the first thing that you should learn when it comes to everything that we're talking about here is that once you understand kind of how to kind of create the swing triangle and get the proper push-pull feeling, is that from there, once you've trained in your chair and done all your chair drills, how do you bend forward? How do you anchor yourself into the ground? Like, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. The simplest way to think about it is if you stand vertical and let's just say you hold your arms and hands, we'll put the club here, put it like palm to palm, and then you bend forward 45 degrees from your hips, keeping your legs locked. And then your arms again stay in the same relationship, straight out away from like each shoulder. That's basically giving you like the perfect neutral like position. Then you slightly flex your knees to relieve the tension of like the locked legs, right? So you have a little mobility, but if you like the more that you flex, the more the weight's going to move inward towards your toes. And there's certain types of swings. Something funny I heard the other day from Lee Trevino was that he was talking to Sevi Ballesteros about how to hit flop shots relative to pitch shots and chip shots. And he said, if you want to hit a flop shot, you have to ride the pony. And so what he meant by that is he said, you flare your toes out, you put your heels almost together, and that keeps you from moving your feet. And it keeps your chest completely stable. So you're not moving your body at all. And then he'd take the swing. It was all hands and arms. And he would just drop the club down and then keep the face, like thump the trailing edge, right? And then it was like scooping when you came through. But like you're using the ground to bounce it. And you just hit these amazing, just little high dead shots. And then he goes, if I want to hit the pitch shot, he basically said that from the backswing position, he would let his trail foot, like imagine like the instep of your right foot or your trail foot, and letting that pin inward with your inner knee. And then when you come through, as you drive your trail palm, it's going to allow you to cover the ball more.
So your chest is more like leading edge. So you're a little more kind of like,
but he was just using literally like his trail foot, knee, and leg and hip, like angle to completely change the dynamic of the effective loft of the club face with the same exact setup and shot.
Right.
Which was really cool. Because I mean, that's really what it's all about. I mean, we talk about the anchored ankles, and that's what he's saying when he says ride the pony. It means that if you ride a pony, your toes are outward,
toes are flared
and your
out.
knees, like you flex your knees inward towards your toes, and you sit down. It's like you're sitting on a bar stool, right? But you're not gonna move, and your axis, like spine angle wise, is a little more vertical. But you're swinging a short club anyway,
right?
So it's like it kind of matches up that way.
So it's almost like the way your toes are kind of flared right now is that it almost anchors your ankles even more when you flare them.
Yeah.
Because it kind of like digs them in like on 45.
I called it duck feet. If you put your heels together and point your toes straight out,
right,
and then you feel like the max external with your hands and arms, like that's the most like expanded your entire body and like as a flat surface. Like if you're like standing up against a wall and had everything to be as flat as you could get it, like you'd have to be in max external from head to toe. Right. And then just maybe touch your tip of your nose to it from there. But like, that's it for the hands and arms. And that's really like, that's how, if you move from there, like, and you stay centered, you're going to have to tilt properly. And you can like imagine the plane.
Helps you visualize the plane.
Right. And then when you turn your lead hand for the grip, and then you turn the trail hand for the grip, and then you swing the club, like it's really feeling the same thing in a sense, but we don't want as much knee flex when we ride the pony for the fuller swings. But but it's seriously like, I mean, a lot of pros, I mean, over time have had flared feet, and it makes sense because it creates the squatting action from the top. Like it allows the trail leg to stay in like external rotation to where it like keeps it from firing too open. And it's funny because like Scotty Scheffler is basically doing the exact same thing with his trail foot, and leg slide.
Keeping it pinned.
It allows him to stay in tilt and finish with his like shoulders, and like he has a lot of tilt he maintains, right? But as kind of like his finish is a little bit leftward, but it's only because he's not pushing, or he's not like rehinging really rapidly, we'll just say. He's kind of hanging on to it. He does release the club.
Like Cam Smith.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. But they also, I mean, let's say this, like the lead arm gets maybe a little bit of disconnection for a brief period of time, but the arms and hands eventually do get to a perfect release, and they're keeping a good relationship. So, I mean, it works. So
the thing is that they're so braced. They're so braced.
Yeah, you got to get the brace right.
You have to get the brace first.
Yeah,
because if you start trying to... if you start trying to pull and like really pull the handle left and like, pull my hands left. No, like you got to learn the brace. You got to learn how to stick the finish on the 45 first.
If you think about like we have the lag, here at pre-impact, we'll just say, toe up and back, perfect, like parallel to toe line or whatever. From there to get like the gear effect, here, again, if your body again is in any position where the hands and arms are relative to like it, like in a, awkward position where it's too close, it's too open, it's too underneath, like you're going to have to manipulate in some way. And when it comes down to it, again, if the center point that you're starting at is not in the right position to start, or if it is moving improperly, like if it's moving improperly throughout the swing at any point, then it's going to cause for a lot of, again, alterations or problems that you just don't want to have to worry about those things. No. Like what we're trying to basically say is that, yes, we haven't put our things out all the way yet, but what we're trying to teach our viewers is that this is the simple process that we're going to walk you all through. And it just comes down to you like get the grip you need. And then from there, we just teach you this basic hand arm action. And when it comes to the body, if we have a strong grip, you're only having to really in swing, use your body about 10% of the actual like conscious movements that are happening. Right. If you go to neutral, it's 20. And if you go to weak, it's
Right.
And that's it.
What we're talking about in this episode is like, 10, 20, 30, but that's very important that you understand how to do that 10, 20, and 30.
And really the majority of it is like, I mean, when you think about when you use a weak grip, the 20% of it is from the top.
Yeah.
Because to the top, really, I mean, you're going to be bowing the wrist and it's very like simple movements.
Right.
But from the top, you have to really understand the footwork and how you're moving the handle.
So
and
much
like
timing.
if the handle goes leftward too much with a weak grip, it gets really bad. It has to work upward properly. And there's just a lot of manipulations.
Yeah.
But when you go to the strong grip, like, you know, again, it minimizes all that.
For the average person, and we've seen this with just all the swings that we get submitted with our Discord and things like that, is that for the average person, a stronger grip is just the better option.
Well, again, because
Less
when
variables.
it comes to the 10%, it's about basically when you go to the top of the swing, you barely have to move your body. All you have to do is allow your body to tilt a little bit, and we'll teach you how to drain water out of like your lead ear to tilt. Like it's through your head.
Right.
Like drain out water out of lead ear like this to help you like stay centered.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit. We should talk about the head a little.
But it's a preset setup.
Let's talk about in-swing a little bit. So we've talked about this a lot with like draining the water and like how the body, like you look at tour players, they use their head really well, right? Like we looked at that slow-mo of Rory today where he's like coming in the ball and he's like.
All the pros from the top of the swing use neck and head tilt. And also like reverse head rotation, which you could say is technically clockwise rotation.
Which is basically just imagine way you're draining the water.
It's basically like being perfectly centered, right? And you can take your head and you can tilt your trail ear down, like you're draining water out of that, or your lead ear down towards like your left shoulder, right? Or lead shoulder. So if you do that, that's the head tilt. And rotation's like the clockwise and counterclockwise from like a perfect standpoint of being like centered, right? And neutral. So,
and that's important because that's how you're going to control your sternum.
There's two different ways, right? So if I had so many students that some of their key things, like very athletic people too, the direction that they look throughout their swing was the entire key to their swing. Like they could not do certain body movements if their head or their eyes were looking in a certain way because of how the neck and the eyes. Right. So what we're trying to explain is that at setup, if you allow yourself just to look slightly back and behind the ball, so it allows you to basically take your head and like turn it to where, again, like instead of looking straight at the ball, about 5 degrees back. And then from there, you're naturally like creating a little bit of tilt with your lead ear down and towards left shoulder, right? Drain a little water. From there, your axis is good if it stays there. So that'll help you like turn around the inside part of your left leg, allow the trail hip and shoulder to work back properly. If we do like the proper down out and like we'll say push pull pressures, right? And then from there, like that's basically how you build your swing,
right? Because that's what Scotty Scheffler does really good,
right?
Like you watch
and then
him
from the top, like you have options. Like again, with a strong grip, you don't have to use your legs much at all. Actually, it's just feet and knees. And then you add the hips a little bit more consciously for like a neutral grip and the maximum for a weak grip.
Correct. Which we talked about in that video on TikTok where we talked about 3 different grip types of how much because you have to hold off the shut face.
Correct.
Right. With a weak grip. Right. Because you're turning the face down and you got to control the trailing edge and all that good stuff.
When we think about it from a viewer standpoint, it's like you guys should all be looking at how can I hit the ball the furthest for my capabilities and in the quickest amount of time. Build the foundation of your swing always.
Effortless
from that
power.
Strong grip. Yes.
Effortless power.
And then like from there again, you make the choice.
Not powerless effort.
Correct. Because most of the tour players that we see, of course, they hit so many balls and they have perfect timing. And there's some that have it, of course, better than, others. But there is like a fault of the perfect push-pull pressures controlled throughout the swing. Like I feel like tour players, there's always like maybe 10 or 15, maybe up to 25% of an improvement they could make in their swing mechanics to actually get them to their peak.
Absolutely.
And they're not doing it, whether it's because they're comfortable with what they're doing, they believe it, or that they don't know that, like
and
how
they
to
hit
do
enough
it.
balls,
or they just don't know how to do it, I guess, basically. Like no one's actually explained it to them in that way.
Right. Because if you look at it, I mean, tour players, they're naturally gifted, and a lot of them don't have a ton of knowledge of like why they're good, right? They're just naturally good, and they don't really care why they're good.
I think almost every tour player or any type of like player that plays on any tour in general, or like anyone that's under,
they want to be knowledgeable.
Under a 5. Yeah, they are knowledgeable now because of the
all the technology,
social media and technology, and like you go get lessons, right?
Yeah,
but still, when it comes down to it, though, when you break the swing down in signs like we have, like when we come up with our smart stuff,
correct,
it's like implementing that into a like a lesson from a coach to a student,
it's
a tough, yeah, exactly. It's a tough process, but we've broken it down into a language that's understandable, and that's going to be the claw code.
Yes.
And it's really cool.
Love it.
And I've been working on this for a long time, like perfecting it with a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And with, again, like my best students that I've had,
Thousands
like recently I've just
lessons.
like realized again, like just verified this are like these push-pull pressures against the handle are really like the key. But again, the stable sternum, and that's where they struggle, is they don't know exactly that they're moving, because you can't feel it. Like if you move an inch or two, like it can completely mess everything up.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem.
Right.
Is, they just need to understand exactly like when it starts, like the ball starts doing this a little bit, because they don't have a lot of misses. They can just play their misses and still shoot okay.
Yeah.
But like how to pinpoint it right there.
It's like you're trying to steer your car, like we always talk about, like trying to steer your car around you and back to the ball. It's like, imagine like steering your car, but moving out of like the driver's seat, like over by the passenger seat. It's like, whoa, why is my car going off the rails? It's like, well, because you're moving out of your seat.
That those simple, like, little tweaks that, like, you need. Because, if you don't understand that, like, again, like learning and training can become one of those things where it's really not fun. It's not working.
Right.
But we really have a way to regulate it and make sure that everything's right, because we understand the parameters that the club has to be at relative to the body. And that's what we're going to walk you guys all through. And you can create your own little swing station at home from the little tips. We'll have like a thing of like how you can do like your alignment rods, and then the chair drills. I
can't wait for the chair drills. Like that. People are really going to be, and nobody's really done anything with chair drills or thought about chair drills, because nobody's ever really talked about kind of the push pull and like how the hands and arms work relative to the body, and
how to explain the tautness.
Exactly. The tautness. Absolutely.
Right.
And that's what you look at guys. I mean, like the winner this week. I mean, we just watched, Cantlay winning this week. I mean, he is so anchored into the ground.
Right.
Like you watch him when he's setting up to the ball, like he's doing his little like happy feet move, and you see like he's just anchoring himself into the ground. And he's doing his hands and arm move relative to that. And he doesn't have the perfect hands and arm move.
No.
But his body movement's pretty darn good.
Right. He does push really good in his takeaway. He pulls a little late, but he has like a really good or interesting, it's like, I like it because it's like, it looks really methodical, but from the top, he really increases his push pull. And his head moves backwards, I would say 2 inches from the top to, I would say halfway down, like basically we'll just say to pre-impact.
Right.
And then from there, his head doesn't move, and he literally doesn't move at all from there to his finish, maybe a half an inch at most.
Right.
But his head stays perfectly centered, and his shoulders just unwind perfectly around like his axis at a 45-degree angle. Yeah. And then his arms and hands just whip right back up around like his left ear.
Right.
It's really bizarre. But
so
he stays
simple.
on top of he basically really stays on top of the golf ball though. Like because he's the way he goes to the top, he keeps his trail shoulder like on, like his lead arm is basically a little bit above his shoulder plane at the top. And so from there, then his massive increase, but his increase is almost a little bit vertical more than it is like, so if you think about like the increase on a 45, he's at like maybe about 40.
A little more vertical.
Actually, I'm sorry. So if you think about the increase being on a 45, he's at like 50. So he's actually a little bit more on top of it when he comes down.
Got it.
And then he uses his feet and knees really well, but he really covers the ball. So I can imagine that like his miss is pretty much just like a tug left.
A tug left, yeah.
Typically.
Right.
Yeah. Or
I would actually I was watching like Adam Scott did really good this week, and it's cool seeing him play good. But I would say like Cantlay is very similar to Adam Scott. It's just more compact. Like I feel like Adam Scott,
it's a lot more. Yeah,
Cantlay is what Adam Scott should have been. Like Adam Scott has a beautiful swing. Everybody talks about.
He has max extensions, and he just like
has perfect swing. But really, you look at Adam Scott. There's a lot of moving parts.
There's a lot.
Like he has to be perfect with. I mean, that's a controversial take. Everybody's like, "Oh my God, Adam Scott has the best swing." If you actually like studied it and broke it down, you would see that if he tightened up a couple things and made it a little more compact, he would win.
He'll probably end up doing it in about 5 years when he gets
getting
older, and then he'll probably play the best golf of his life and then win the Masters again.
Right. Exactly. Or like the Open or something. Or you look at like Tom Watson. Tom Watson's like very similar, where he used to have a really long swing.
I felt like too like Ernie Els. Like I feel like if Ernie Els just like in Vijay Singh like once they got really old, they should just like compact it. And it's like, how can you not dominate with that?
Right.
Like it doesn't make sense.
Such a I mean,
he's a little too free flowing. Well, I guess Ernie L's better. I like him because he literally preset the pressures, like in the takeaway and the backswing, like push pull. Talk about it. He's the like one of the legends. I mean, it helps when you're just I think he's like 6'4" or 6'5", but he's a big dude. With a lot of like flexibility too.
Yeah.
So I mean, his swing was just a poetry. That's why he never looked like he was trying to hit the golf ball. But I feel like if he could have even compacted his swing a little bit more, it would have been better than trying to make that perfect kind of rhythmic tempo kind of move. Because I always felt like when I seen some of the best players I've ever seen, it had more of a punch look to the swing. It didn't look like this. I mean, it was very nice looking, like aesthetically and everything, not any violent parts in a certain sense, but like it didn't look like that Roy McIlroy kind of finish that you think about, or Adam Scott or Ernie Els, like free flowing.
Yeah, because when we say like things like we're talking about of more compact, like for the viewers or the listeners that really don't know what that means, what does that mean?
Like imagine taking a three-quarter swing, like lead arm parallel to the ground in the backswing, trail arm parallel to the ground in the follow through.
So it's almost like if you had a wall like on the other side of you and you were like swinging and trying to not hit the wall. And all your
speed is basically accumulated from there to there.
Got it.
And not trying to really like exert any more or like let the energies even be exerted like past those points, because with the recoil swing, once you like break down, I mean, I hit the ball, let's say this, like I had what felt like a half to three-quarter backswing, but I felt like I had a half to three-quarter follow through. And I hit the ball pretty much the furthest.
Right.
If I went to the top and let's say I go to a full, I'd have to feel like I almost stopped at a quarter in the follow through. And when I did that, it would go even a little further, but it was really hard to, I just didn't practice it enough. I didn't have time, but I felt like what it had to be though. And that's what, when you think about, building your swing, it's like, that's really what it is.
Right. Yeah. And that's why when we're talking about, when we have all of our archive videos that we're going to have, it's really going to be focused on kind of building it from like
the ground up
to half to three-quarter to full, and really like understanding from like a wedge to a short iron to a long iron to a driver, and like how all that works.
And the nice thing though is that what it comes down to is it's the same process when it comes to the claws and the connection of the arms and hands, the body manipulations and stuff like or the alterations, setup. But thumping the ground with the trailing edge and leading edge of the golf club is really like the main thing that we're doing with every single golf club. We're trying to do that at a certain point. So when it comes to like hitting a wedge, you're trying to hit, approximately 1 to 2 inches in front of the golf ball, right? But when it comes down to hitting a driver, we're trying to hit down approximately 1 to 2 inches behind it. But because the ball's forward and the axis is tilted appropriately, the club is going to go from lag to release, where it goes from being the club head being bent up and back to it snapping forward. And because the shaft bends so much, it actually minimizes the distance of the club to the ground by like 2 inches in the actual swing. So you can try to actually hit down as hard and down, like you can try to hit down as hard as you want behind the ball 2 inches with a driver. And if you stay in tilt and you don't move lateral or move downward, you'll never hit the ground. And all you'll do is the harder you try to hit down, the further you'll hit it.
And thumping the trailing edge.
Yeah, trying to thump the trailing edge. Yeah. If you're coming in, like, let's just say that your hands and arms, you're like too, underneath, like coming in and like you're not trying to thump down. Like you might need to feel the lean edge a little bit, but we probably need to fix what's going on before that to get you in a better position. Because that's what it's all about. We're trying to get your takeaway, your pre-impact right, so then you can thump appropriately with every club, and that's all it comes down to. That's all it comes
down to. Right. That's why you look at all these different tour players. They have all these kind of different crazy things that they do, but they've all got pretty good like set of the pressures in the takeaway. Body's not moving, like we said, with the stable sternum, and then pre to post impact is pretty much identical. Yeah. What they do from there, whatever. Like, do what you got to do.
It's then we have to deal with understanding different lies and the different, all the different stuff with the mental game, course management, things that come with golf. Yeah, like you have to learn your stock game and your stock swing. Like learn the swing first, then you have to, learn how to manage it. It's just like playing Tiger Woods golf on, like a PlayStation or whatever. I mean, seriously,
true.
You have to like train your person and then they get a distance right. But it's like, if you go out and your guy can't hit it past 250 and you play from 6,800 yards, like, what are you going to shoot? Like, can you go out and shoot like a 65? Probably not unless you played it a lot. Yeah. But if like you haven't played it much and you go out there and all you have to do is take the joystick straight back and through, you're probably going to struggle to break 85.
Yeah, I want to play the new 2K game for golf. I played the last year one. The new one's coming out in like August. I guess Tiger's gonna be on the front. Keep seeing like a bunch of stuff about it, but I want to play it because I guess they've really made like the joystick like
more accurate.
It's very accurate.
Oh, cool.
Like if you're not doing it right, like if you're going too quick with the tempo, like they're I mean the technology they have in the controllers is pretty awesome.
Oh
so,
yeah, definitely.
I mean you can really you can build some cool stuff into the game and code some cool stuff. So
we'll be doing the video game
nerd out
stuff,
about
like,
that.
eventually
we'll definitely,
too. But
yeah, maybe we'll play that game and put it on Twitch or something.
There you go.
Let us know in the comments if you want us to do that.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, it's really cool because we're talking so much about the hands and arms and the push pull, and a big thing that we're going to talk about a lot with claw code is just like the direction that the hands are pushing, right? Like we've talked about the beach ball,
yeah.
We've talked about all that, but it's like you need to understand the laser beam, right? Like understanding like the direction that your palms are pushing relative to a stable sternum. Like your sternum can't be moving. If you're pushing, you could be doing the beach ball drill perfectly, but if your sternum's moving with the beach ball and with your hands and your claws, it's not going to be effective.
Right.
You have to remain that, like we said, the tautness, right? Like you have to retain that.
Again, so to keep this simple, the 10, 20, or 30% body, it's all incorporated into the presets at setup to anchor it, like the sternum and axis. And then from there, we can do all this push pulling and twisting of, sorts for
so
the different.
So what is a preset? Is a preset,
preset
just
means
like
you're presetting your weight on your left side, keeping the weight like on your heels in a sense, but like it's moving adequately, like the same amount, like to the leg side. Then you can pre-rotate, like so you can pre-close.
Got it. Okay.
And so you preset your turns, and then that way, I mean, when you hit like wedges and stuff, I mean, you don't even have to physically turn at all. You can take a full backswing for what you need, and then just basically focusing on if you like the amount of footwork you need and the type of release that you're doing, and that's all it takes. It's very, very simple.
I thought it was cool how you told me how you were talking about how when you're rotating and turning in the backswing, you're really just rotating like that first like quarter, and then the club winding around you from there, as long as you have the tautness, is controlling the rest of the rotation.
True.
I thought that was a really interesting thing because when you look at most coaches online and on TikTok or whatever, is you're just seeing them talk about like 90 degrees of rotation consciously. It's like, it's only like 45 or 50.
It's thinking about, when you think about shoulder turn, the problem is that people think shoulder. So when you think about shoulders, it really doesn't work, like in a sense, but like thinking about keeping the tautness, like pushing down out as you start your takeaway and keeping the club going straight back for like 1 foot. And then if you do that, like everything's moving and creating depth properly with the chest. And then from there, if you do your move relative to the takeaway that you, or I mean, we'll say that like the length of your backswing you're trying to go to, whether it's like half, 3/4 full, it's going to be perfect. But when it comes down to, I would say like that would be for a half, 3/4 and full actually. When it comes down to a quarter or less, the presets are already enough.
Got it. Okay.
And you really want to feel that straight back move, honestly, for shots that you want to cover a little bit more and trap, like lower shots. But when it comes to anything higher, you're going to want to go just a titch. Like let the face just rotate open just a hair.
Got it. Okay.
Like to that position, whether it's like a quarter of a quarter, half a quarter, 3/4 of a quarter, or a quarter, like actually, with
Got it. Okay. I get what you're saying. Yeah. Because it's just understanding like, once you
like
kind of
gradual move, because then like once you get that gradual move going back, like the toe set back the heel, then we can push down out on the handle, and it gives you like a perfect width. Because in the takeaway, for the short shots, like the problem people have is they start hinging too much, or they start doing too many like big movements. It's like you want to keep everything really stable and low. And like if you already are tilted and leaning, like if you're leaning left a little bit, you like pre-closed a little bit, you're setting the angle. So just follow that angle, basically going back, and then you're already coming back into the ball the right way, as long as nothing's moving.
And do you feel like you are consciously like going like out a little bit, like away?
You're going always away from your sternum like this, but like if the sternum isn't like leaning left and then rotated, like a laser beam coming out of your chest, kind of like
pointing like just
Iron
outside
Man.
your trail
Imagine
foot.
Iron Man's little circle thing. And it's like that beam is where you're trying to push towards, and you're keeping that.
Yeah,
like
that's
constant,
cool.
right? Because as that beam goes back, if you turn more, it's like the hands have to stay in line with it. If the beam goes too quick and the arms are stuck, or the arms go up too quick and the chest is stuck, then it's a little bit of disconnection.
That's why that club
and you can get away with a little bit of that, honestly. Like most
Right.
people, pros, do that.
Right.
But in my opinion, if you had everything working perfectly like that, you're getting as close to being as connected as possible.
So do you think that you're consciously once you get the proper kind of presets and you get your pre-turn and you get your takeaway good with your push-pull and everything, from there, do you think you would say the winding of the club like around your hands is what's creating the final bit of rotation, or do you have to consciously
it's the momentum of the club? No,
so you don't have to consciously keep rotating.
The thing is that,
right?
So when you look at like these pros that we've been talking about, like Zalatoris, and you look at McCormick, and a lot of these guys, like
Morikawa.
not Rory though, like
Morikawa.
Yeah, but like Rory and stuff, like he's got the push pull the best, but a lot of these guys are not like really maximizing the push pull, so they actually are using their shoulders a little bit longer. But also what they're doing is that it's kind of more of like the whip analogy, where like if you imagine taking a whip back and like creating like the widest circle like this, and then bringing it in as narrow as possible, and then cracking the whip like at the ball. That's pretty much what they're doing. But when it comes to the golf swing mechanics with the connection of the hands and arms to the body, I think that it's better to activate the pull quicker in the backswing to already set the angle so that there's less like variables.
Timing.
Because if their timing's off a little bit with the turns or with that timing of that increase, because it's so much more in a sense like violent, then it wouldn't be. Like if you had the the sets earlier.
I got you.
Then like I think that
we always recommend that. Like
for
my students,
it's a thing of like timing. Like you just got to look at it as these pros are again hitting so many balls. It's working for them right now. But again, everyone can get better at golf.
Yeah.
So we're again going to give you a template that is perfection, and then it's upon you of how quick or how much you want to take of that.
Yeah.
To make it.
Because we will give you everything you need if you want to build from the ground up the perfect grip, the perfect backswing, the perfect downswing, perfect pre to post impact, the perfect follow through. We'll give you the tools for that.
Right.
Perfect short game. And then do with it what you want. You want little pieces of, maybe I want to bow a little more. Okay, that's fine. We'll teach you how to do that. You want to use your body more because you're a little more athletic. That's fine. Do that. We're not going to paint you into a corner.
Right. Well, it's like every swing is like grip type is broken down to like 3 sections of like the more bow, like max bow, medium, and like, minimal.
Correct.
So it's like, it'll explain each avenue to you that way.
Yes.
And so it's very simple though. It's like, it's all structured. There's no loose ends to it. Like it explains everything to its entirety. And then again, it just comes down to the daily repetitions, which we are going to have as well. And it's very simple. So
right. Exactly.
We're looking forward to it.
It's going to be really exciting. Yeah. Keep an eye out for that. If you haven't joined our Discord already, join that, because that's when you're really going to see kind of a lot of the little kind of information on it. We're going to give a little bit of teasers, maybe a couple clips. But yeah, those are coming soon. We'll have some details on pricing. I know some people were asking about that. I have one more thing I want to talk about before we wrap up. So I had a gentleman on our TikTok, and I was talking about I was coming in at pre-impact, and I have a strong grip, so I had the lead wrist cupped, and I had the face, which would kind of look a little bit open. I had the heel leading the toe. And he was asking me, he's like, how do I square it from there? He's like, the face is open, your lead wrist is cupped. How are you not going to like hit it to the right? And what would you say is the best way to describe that? Would you just say understanding like how the trail arm goes from bent to straight? Like what would be the best way to describe that?
If you have a weak grip, lead thumb down the shaft, like vertical, we're using the bow. So it's like, we're coming in like this. Okay. So the face, again, like toe to heel, let's say the golf ball is like here, toe is up and back. And so the release is going to look more like this, where if we come in with a neutral grip, so the lead thumb's at like 2 o'clock, so it'll be a little bit more open. And then basically the more that the lead thumb is on the trail side of the club, if you're like levering it back, the thumb is going to naturally like allow the club to unrotate, because we're swinging a cylinder. So, or like, the handle is a cylinder. So it's going to unwind. So it has a natural closing effect if you're pushing. So, but the thing is that if you're turning and then you're not able to feel the thumb, like we'll say that your lead thumb is pointing straight back behind you at pre-impact. And by the time your club, like the butt end of your golf club gets to the outside of your lead hip, the lead thumb should point as well as the club head towards target. If they're still hanging back like this, we're holding on to it too long.
I like that.
And then you're probably going to be turning and pulling out of it or something.
So
right?
the handle has to stop.
It has to, because it's like a catapult effect.
Right.
Because we're swinging cylinders on shafts with like a little spade thing, right?
Exactly.
So that's what messes it up. So when we get to the strong grip, the more, like when you get that lead and trail thumb on that trail side of the club to the max, if you get that toe coming in like this, the face is open, but naturally, this is the effect. So like, if you take the club like this and you turn your hands, let's say, this is like the strongest grip you would ever want, right?
Absolutely.
And if I basically just unwound the pressures that I have with my claws, that would be exactly what they want to naturally do.
Right.
So at setup, I get like this, and then I push down and lock my elbows, and it holds that. So when I twist it back coming in, naturally, I mean, this is just waiting.
So that's why you twist to counter that.
And you try to push like this and keep you only push. I mean, we're going to talk about a pump drill, and we have we
talked about that in the piece of content we did.
Yeah,
Everybody loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
But I mean, just saying though, that's really it. And then the trail hand staying cupped and the trail arm going from bent to straight, that allows you to catapult like the butt end of the club where it like is pushed down and out, gets the tautness to a point where then the club can go no further. So the club has to naturally rack down and out. And then how much you keep pushing with that control is then going to control the gear effect. Because if you give up at any point, it's like certain little manipulations. Well, no, it depends.
Oh, right,
it could be this. It could be that. It could be,
true.
Like there's a multiple. See, that's the problem.
See, everybody thinks that when the handle stops, you're flipping.
No, like
that's the problem.
Because you have the club like this, so the handle stops like this for a brief moment. But because the club head's going from a distance such up and back behind the handle to down and out away from the handle, and then up and back relative to the handle over that distance, it's okay. It's not just like the handle stops and it's just like flip around. No, it has to go down, out, and away. And there's a lot of velocities going on with like the body and everything. But the idea is that when the handle stops and the club head is being catapulted, that's where the trail side of the body is actually at a point where it's decelerating, going backwards to allow yourself to catapult the handle down, out, and away from the sternum.
Which is why, like,
so when we talk about
footwork,
or when we talk about footwork, like that's what they're doing to allow them to do that. So they all have unique ways of doing it as well. So there's like more. See, there's more variables.
That's cool.
But we're gonna explain the footwork and everything that works for each type of grip type.
So that's why the presets, like we're talking about the presetting, is that presetting is just getting you in a position to support the like catapult.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Well, mainly though, it just makes your short game and stuff so easy.
Oh,
it's
for
so
sure.
simple, and that's what we want to do. Is if you can. It's like taking a car into the shop and getting like an oil change. You put it up on the racks, then you can do your maintenance. So when you take your golf swing, you need to do maintenance. You have to put it up on the racks. Well, when you put it up on the racks, like anchoring your ankles and not moving and hitting like quarter shots.
True.
And perfecting it.
Right.
And then you do half to half. And if you get that right, let's say you hit 100 shots like that, you're giving yourself like the full synthetic oil change.
Right.
Yeah.
I like it. That's a great way to describe it. So I hope that answers your question, because that was a really good question, because I get that a lot. Everybody's like, your lead wrist is cupped. Like, how are you hitting it with a cupped lead wrist? It's like, well,
this isn't hanging on. Like, he's not going like
not
this.
Holding on.
Like all the way. It's like there is like the release.
Stopping
like,
and then
right.
It's not like,
and the way that you're pushing with your claws is going to determine the what I call it like a re-kick of like effect.
Correct.
Like the lag, once it releases, like re-kicks back at you. And the way that it re-kicks is the way that you push with your like claws.
Yes.
From that point of like just before impact. And we're not talking like there's pre-impact, and then there's like half of pre-impact, and then there's like impact.
Yep.
And then there's like half of post-impact, and then post-impact, and then I even broke it down to 2 sections on top of that.
Yes.
But the idea is that, like what you're doing throughout this entire, moment throughout like the swing is everything.
Absolutely.
And like if there's any slight variation, it has a
drastic effect.
Dramatic effect.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's like we talk about, you were saying, that is the natural movement that wants to happen with the untwisting. So when we go back, we're kind of twisting to kind of counter that. So we're like open, but we're not open to open. We're open to square. Like we talked about in the last podcast. Because of the gear
effect of how the club face works relative to the grip.
Correct. Exactly. Because
with a weak grip, you're going from basically square to closed to square.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. And then
to almost open, you really want to almost feel open,
which
like,
is
depending
why,
on how much you blow though. But,
which is why like DJ and all these guys, you'll see them like their lead wrist is actually cupped in the follow through.
well, everyone's is like technically.
Yeah, you'll never see a guy like
No.
dramatically, unless you're like DeChambeau. DeChambeau is like really aggressive with like the amount of ulnar and like supination he gets, but he does eventually get back. But maybe that's why he had to have wrist surgery.
See, there we go. Yeah, we can only push ourselves so far.
Exactly.
We're humans. So
yeah, this is exciting stuff, guys. Like we're again, we appreciate all the support we've been getting. If you haven't joined the Discord yet, links are in the bottom. Go join that. Send us your swing. We really want to help. Like Jonathan said at the beginning, we wish it was more. We want to help more people. Like I'm waiting. We're waiting for all these people to come flooding in. We're gonna help you with your game. And we're going to have our archive videos here pretty soon. Claw code.
We're going to give you what you've been waiting for. It's just,
exactly.
Again, that's what we just felt bad about, was that we wish we could have got it to you quicker. But
we do.
You know, but we had to start with building our content and our followers first.
Yep.
And now we're at a point where we can really launch like our main thing that we've actually had this whole time.
We're doing it like phases.
Yeah.
Like phase one was like, we
right.
wanted to help as much people as we can and create as much content as we could and see if we knew it was going to help a lot of people.
Right,
and now we've realized like, perfect, we're doing what we want to do. Now phase two is helping people even more. Like we're just trying to help as much people as possible, as much as we can. So yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This has been a really fun episode. I love the way you described that release at the end. I'm so glad I asked you that, because that was gold.
Right.
That right there is really cool. And yeah. So thanks, guys. Really appreciate all the support and everything. And yeah, we'll see you next episode.
Yep. Thank you.
This is cloth.